continue to participate in this process, because this is what it's been. It's been a long process, but it's not over. This is part of the process. This is a work in progress. What's going to be presented today is a proposal. When we started this, the Board of Education was quite clear with me. Make this as transparent as possible and involve as many people as possible. Mrs. Lawson, our assistant superintendent, and I have been out over 25 presentations, many to the PTA, many to our faculty and staff, 3 community conversations where anybody in the community could show up. We've had lots of communication, lots of opportunities for feedback, making adjustments, modifying the plan. Today is the design team's time to share the proposal with me, and I wanted to do it in a public setting. I have not received the proposal yet. I've been bits and pieces of the plan, had some discussions along the way, but this really has been honoring the board's desire to have widespread participation in the design effort. Over 90 people signed up to be on the design team. That's just wonderful. What great community we have. And they've been very cordial and very flexible in making necessary adjustments based on the input that we receive from what appears to be the majority view. You know as well as I do, it's not all going to be perfect for all people, but our goal is that we do as good a job as we can at listening our way to a solution. The solution being unfolded next fall when we open up the magnet school at John College. Let's see, before I hand it over to Deb. So, oh yes. So again, this is their proposal. I will receive it today, and you will hear about it today, and I'll have about 3 weeks to be able to reflect on the fine print, so to speak. I'll have about 3 weeks to reflect on and review with my cabinet colleagues and get prepared for December 8th when I'll make my final recommendations to the Board of Education. Now, although we've met twice with the Board of Education, we will meet one more time. We'll meet, I think that's November 29th for a study session. One more opportunity just to make some final adjustments, because my goal as superintendent is to do my job. I feel like come December 8th, if I've done my job properly, we will have this in and out on December 8th. And we will get the approval that we so desire. What makes for good implementation is usually good planning. And so the months of communication effort will hopefully come to fruition at that point in time. Because the debates, the discussions, the ideas, the planning, all the hard work should have been taken care of before you go to the board with your recommendation. And so the 3 board meetings, the 3 community conversations, the dozens and dozens of meetings that we've been communicating this out and listening our way to a better solution is nearing an end. And today we'll hear that proposal. And I, for the first time, will receive that proposal. I have yet to hear the total proposal. And although I've heard bits and pieces, as I said before, I will tell you this, that much of their proposal will probably get my support. So I can guarantee you not all of it will. So do not assume when you leave here that what the proposal is what it's going to be, because that will not be the case. I've been involved enough to know there's a bit or 2 pieces that I'll want to make an adjustment to or modification to. You may at the end say, well, that wasn't much of an adjustment, but you know, every little bit makes a difference when you get down to the final plan. So with that, we'll get started. I told Debbie I would make sure that she had a full hour to present the proposal. She's going to use a PowerPoint presentation to assist her in communicating this. And again, thank you for being here. If somebody says, well, I wish I would have made it, remind me that there is one tonight at 6:30. Yeah, 6:30. So we have a repeat session at 6:30. Well, thank you very much for being here, and we'll turn it over to my superintendent.
Thank you. I'm going to give you this right now. Good morning. Thanks for coming. There's so many of you, and your attention to these people over here who are our chairmen of our committees. We actually had 7 committees, and I'll show you those in just a minute. But could you give them a round of applause? They didn't charge a penny. And there are lots of you in the audience that were at part 2, so I really appreciate your help. This truly is a proposal that was put together by lots of people, lots of listening, lots of discussion, lots of consensus building to come to what I'm going to present to you today. In fact, you'll see a couple of things that are presented that have a little different slant coming from different committees. So we'll look at those as we go through. I have a lot of slides. In fact, this is all of them. So I'll go pretty quick. That as we go through each committee proposal, we'll stop and see if you have any questions before we go on, because it gets a little lengthy, and just make sure you're with me. Okay? All right. Ready to go. This is the first thing that I really did want to bring to your attention. This is an email, actually, that I received from Dr. Kleinsmith that really does show the transparency of what we tried to do with the idea of a magnet school. We have truly tried to listen our way to a solution. We have met with people individually, as groups, lots of phone calls, lots of questions. A lot of things have developed so that we truly feel that we have tried to hear anything that anybody has had to say, and we will continue to do that. So I welcome you to give us any comments, any questions, any concerns, any yahoos, whatever, as you go through. But if you read this, you can see that it has always been his direction that when we communicate this idea, that we want to use that process that engages and educates our patrons, that it openly reviews options, encourages appropriate participation by the faculty and community, and reaches a decision that is in the best interest of most, if not all, community members. We want everyone to feel as though he or she has had a chance to be heard. Our goal is to get most people to understand what our plan is, not necessarily that they support it. So the main thing is that communication. Of course, we'd love your support, but we want you to understand what the plan is before we would even ask for that. Okay, our design team did have over 90 members. It was made up of parents and teachers, administrators, community members, and we had all of these committees. We started out with the curriculum committee and then a 21st century learning skills committee, and quickly realized that those need to go hand in hand. So we combined those 2 committees. Then our co-curricular or extracurricular committee, procedures and guidelines, technology, facilities, and publicity. And each of those committees worked extremely hard, spent many hours, and I can't tell you how serious they took their assignment. Lots and lots of research, lots and lots of talking, and lots of meetings. The design team was charged to put together ideas for a school, but there were certain parameters that Dr. Kleinsmith gave us to begin with. And so every committee worked within these parameters. First of all, it was going to be a grades K through 6, as opposed to our traditional, I've been saying allergies all year, and I think I just have allergies.
I have she brought a bottle of wine.
Okay, I've got a cup right here too. I'll grab it. Pardon me, I'm sorry. Grades K through 6, and at John Thomas Elementary, our school calendar for this school would be a little bit longer. It would actually be a 20-day increase from our regular 174 days. We would have a major focus, which would be STEM, which would be science, technology, engineering, and math. And the minor focus would be the arts, because in Nixa, and hopefully in every school in America, we want those well-balanced kids. Required service learning or community service. Service learning, community service differ just a little bit, but the main thing is we want our children to be ready to give back to their community and to understand why that's so important. One-to-one technology access for every student, and the use of an unbiased selection system, or like a lottery. Okay, so our first committee was actually the 21st Century Learning Skills and the Curriculum Committee. And as we go through this is the part I get so excited about, are these two, because the details are, the details have to be done. But this is the exciting part to me personally, just because of the learning that takes place. The core subjects, and we know what core subjects are, reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and and the 21st century skills is what the curriculum would be built around. Our curriculum currently does touch on all of those things, but this curriculum would have a little more focus in the 21st century skills, mainly because we'll have a little bit more time to actually get into some of these areas. But the themes, which are the 21st century themes, are life and career skills, learning and innovation skills, information, media, and technology skills. These are the things that our kids are going to need in the future. You know, we don't really know what kind of jobs our kids are going to have, but we know that they're going to need these skills. 21st century student skills, again, are the creativity and innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, communication and collaboration. Those are the 4 C's that enhance the 3 R's. Students will have these attitudes about learning. And I'll let you kind of look through those. I think what this really creates in a child is that inquisitiveness, wanting to learn, wanting to go further. And the difference, and just to explain a little bit how that would look is, you know, traditionally a teacher may stand in front of the class, like I'm doing right now, and giving a lot of information. This particular style of learning would be where a child really digs in and finds that information, and they're inquisitive, and when they find the answer to one problem, it makes them think of another question, and they lead to it. So it's more of a facilitation and figuring out an inquiry-based type of learning, so that they are becoming a good problem solver, a good thinker. What does the curriculum look like? If you walked into a classroom in a school that has these particular attributes, you would look at, pardon me for 1 minute, you would actually see a lot of project-based learning, a lot of action, organized activity, we might call it, cross-curricular. You might see a child working in a particular project that incorporated all of the different core areas. Rigorous wouldn't be simple things. We would be leading them to things that were more in-depth and a little bit harder for understanding. Parental commitment and involvement. We want parents to understand what the expectations are and to be ready to support their child in the school with that as well. Involve others outside the school district, our community, business partnerships with various different businesses around town in Springfield, Branson. We'll show you that a little bit more in some of the other slides. Active classrooms, writing and reading embedded in all areas. You know, being able to be a technical reader and writer is what the world's going to be about. The Industrial Revolution is over. We're in the technology revolution, and we have to be able to turn our students into critical thinkers and writers in order to be successful. A shared leadership between the students and the faculty, that everyone is responsible for learning and everyone's going to achieve at their highest. Extensive staff development. You can't just say we're going to do this and go poof. You know, we all need a little bit of professional, or probably a lot of professional development. I wanted to show you this very quickly because it's just a quick snapshot of what a STEM with the arts turning to STEAM curriculum might look like. This is actually a GLE, a GLE. One of our objectives right now for kindergarten is to recognize that moving air is felt as wind, you know, for a kindergartner. Okay, how can that look through technology? How can it look through engineering? How can it look through the arts? And how can it look through math? And so you can see how just one simple objective can be integrated into all of those areas. Okay, that's kindergarten. Here's one for 2nd grade. Fifth grade. And those are just examples. And those are things that would be developed. There would be some curriculum writing that will need to be taking place with our teachers. Teachers teach. They're the ones who need to be helping with that, with some direction from some of our consultants that we can use. But you can see how you turn a simple objective into a total program that supports the STEAM initiative. Okay, the curriculum, as far as STEAM goes, has all of these things as well. And a lot of these things I've kind of said already, but I want you just to kind of have a picture of what curriculum would look like. I hope these have kind of given you that idea of what the learning would look like. It's not totally different than what you would see in classrooms in any of our schools today, but it does have a little bit more focus on some of those 21st century skills and a little bit more of a teacher facilitating perhaps than actually being the teacher. The teacher would be facilitating the learning and expanding the learning. Okay, I said I'd answer any questions after that one. Any questions? Did you get a good picture? Yes.
As a substitute, I'm curious, do you have plans for substitute training also? You said there would be additional training for teachers. Would there be an additional?
I think that would be a great idea. Honestly, we've not addressed that yet, but one thing we have been talking about is providing more in-depth substitute training for all substitutes anyway, so I think that's a great idea and something we need to make sure we consider.
In about 1 month, we have some training available for substitute teachers in the area of classroom management, because many of them have been asking for some assistance in that, so we're going to provide that training. So I tell you that because our attitude is yes to bridge over to the substitute teachers with something as important as training. And so I would suggest to you that we would offer specialized training for substitute teachers willing to learn maybe that angle of methodology that would be applied maybe a little differently at the magnet school. So yes, I think we would do that.
Great question. Yes.
Since the 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade would be in this, right, I think that. When they learn this in 6th grade, it's such a short time in the magnet school, are they gonna have a hard time transitioning from 6th grade back into the mainstream of what the rest of the district is doing, including 5th grade as well?
Do you want me to answer that? You want to? That's a question that's been asked before, actually, and I'll give you Dr. Kleinsmith's answer, and you correct me if I don't get it all completely out there. With our bond issue that's coming up, which is a no tax increase levy issue, the renovations to the junior high will be particularly done like in some of the science labs and those kinds of things, technology. So we really feel that the timing is pretty good. We've talked a lot about 5th and 6th grade, whether or not we should go ahead and start with those and let it build into that or not. But we thought the total, being able to do as much as we could and being able to prepare with materials and everything and be ready to go would be our best option. So we really feel like there will be a fairly smooth transition. Definitely as those improvements are made at the junior high and we kind of power up a little bit more, it'll be even easier. But that's something that we have been talking about.
I'll add 2 things. Again, training, we will have time. Once December 8th, decision is made, we could begin the process of laying out training opportunities for our science and technology and math people that need it, want it, and then also trying to think of how the Governor Perry in our CSIP plan, we have strategy 5, action 5, which states we will employ or develop and implement one-to-one technology opportunities from grade 7 through 12th grade. So that's at the heart of your question. What do we do with some of these children that continue? Well, the Board of Education has approved strategy 5, action plan 5, which again states that we will develop and implement one-to-one technology opportunities at those levels. And so you will soon see, in fact, as I speak, Mr. Hammonds, our executive director of secondary education, is at a workshop about one-to-one technology for grades 7 through 12th grade. And so we'll be all over that in the months to come. And so we see this as being the first step in the direction of many steps that will get our children better prepared for their future. Yes, ma'am.
My question is moving to a different subject. Are there any more questions on the one you're on now?
Well, we're just taking clarifying questions on this segment of the proposal right now, and then we'll go on to the next one, and then you'll have.
My question's a little bit different because I was on the design team in the curriculum subcommittee. And one thing that I realized after the fact was I don't know, and I could not completely articulate, what is the goal that we're trying to accomplish with the magnet school? Because we had the framework and we had a lot of things to look at, but I did not have clearly in my mind what our goal is. And I'm wondering if one of you could articulate that, maybe just for me or for the entire group.
Well, and I could turn over to any of the people that are here as well. Beth, would you want to respond?
Sure. My first thought with that, we work together, is that, and it also ties in with the question back there also, is that while we're doing all these things and implementing all these different learning strategies, we still have to stay true to the core curriculum, because whether, say, a child moves out somewhere or something happens where they're back in the mainstream, they are still accountable to math testing. So I think in this case, what I'm looking at is our goal. In some magnet schools, there's a different theory. In this one, it is to take a level ground field, any child, to give them a rich learning environment in science and math and technology and all these wonderful things and immerse them in it. Now, some people might say, okay, let's take the best and the brightest. This is for every child. This is for any child. So they're instead of just raising a few at the top, this will be raising the whole level up, so that all the children will have a chance to be immersed in math and science. And overall, statistically proven, it works. When you immerse children, if you've ever seen, I'm sure, you know, they have rich language around them and things, guess what? They all learn to read, right? They all know what McDonald's is when they see the golden arches. So those kind of things, so I look at it, it's a little bit differently, but that we're trying to enrich all the children and raise their level of participation, love, and interest in math and science. There, and hopefully through the district, I think it'll be a larger effect than just a few. That was my impression.
Does that help? Okay. Paula, did you want to add anything to that with 21st century skills?
She said it beautifully.
She did.
I have a question.
Yes.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like the goal for all of our schools. I mean, that, just to be frank, that, I mean, it almost makes me cry. That sounds wonderful, what you just said, you articulated it very well.
However, sometimes what happens is we don't have, and I'm a parent, so I also volunteer in the schools, and I'm a teacher as well. But sometimes you need extended time, and really the honest truth is the training. These teachers are going to get a little bit different kind of training. Doesn't take away from what other teachers are doing. In fact, I see this kind of learning all over. I teach in all 8 schools in the district. I see it happening every day. But in this school, there's a mindset between the parents, the teachers, and the shared leadership. Really, the parents are part of leadership as well, that has a mindset that says we are really in this thing and we're committed, and you'll see other pieces as we go along that tie that together. But it does happen at all of our schools. Look at our test scores. It's there. The facts support. So there is no, you can't get slacky teaching in Nixa. It's not going to happen. It just doesn't. We have a fantastic district. I think this changes the shift a little bit to the math and science and the 21st century.
Okay, let's take one more
I
question.
was just wondering, when you say the bullet point where it says more time to teach in depth, so does that what does that mean exactly? Like
20 extra days. 20
Okay.
extra days on the calendar.
Okay.
And also, you know, you use your time differently. When you're working like this and working and collaborating with other teachers, maybe you split your time slots, put them together, collaborate more, do more of a scientific inquiry-based learning. So therefore, you can have a larger slot of time. When you're a teacher, sometimes it's just that compartmentalization that holds you back from doing some things that you want to do.
Said no math testing. For this school, they're not.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Well,
everyone is still accountable to the same
okay.
standards.
I just wasn't
Yes.
sure.
We'll have
So-
lots of opportunities throughout this morning to make progress. Hang on to some of those good questions you have.
Hang
Let's
on.
get through another section and open it up again.
Okay. Okay, and we may answer your question as we go through too. Okay, let me go back. This is actually the co-curricular or the arts part, the A in STEAM. The key components are flexible scheduling. Currently in our schools, we have a 50-minute period. Sometimes it's turned into 2 25-minute periods of time when our students attend those related arts classes. This would actually probably look quite different. Some of the things that you might see would be elective classes for kids that are in grades 4 through 6 that they would choose. They would still have PE, music, art, computer, and library, but it may look different. They may have 6 weeks of dance. They might have 6 weeks of martial arts. They might have 6 weeks of endurance training. The curricular offerings will be decided later. So I'm going to show you several that have been suggested. But the labs, the studios, the centers is what those students would be going to, as opposed to a traditional classroom for music or a traditional classroom for art. Might look a little bit different in the physical setting. Because we have so many great ideas that we would like to offer to enrich our students with the idea of the arts, some of those might actually be presented in forms of clubs. The curriculum would be integrated. It has to be in order to, and that good question about how do you get all that done. Longer days, more integration of all of the areas. Focus on the GLEs, which are grade level expectations, and the CCSs, which are going to be new to some of you, are the Common Core Standards. Those are the new national standards that will be in effect in the year 2014-15. Okay, these are some of the ideas for physical education. Would have possibly a drama component, dance, aerobics, yoga, martial arts, health, biomechanics, and that's just an initial list of some of the things that we would hit. Also, you would see the traditional things. We still need healthy kids who are getting lots of activity. Art really opens up a lot of area in art. In looking at the architecture, architecture is really being creative. It's solving that problem and being creative to solve a problem. So you have to have that creative mind to be an architect or to be an engineer, to build what architects dream too. Multicultural exploration, pottery, sculpting, photography, graphic design. Art has really moved in our world today to a lot of graphic design, using the computer to do that. Art walks, like downtown. In Springfield, we can have our own art walk. Here in Nixa, drama component there as well. The library could really look quite different and being much more flexible scheduling, where students are actually learning the skill they need at the point that they need it, where the librarian or the media specialist would be available to help those students instead of teaching in isolation, which is what we do now in most of our schools. Not all of the time, but I would say generally, because of our schedule and the way that we do have to schedule. Those skills are often taught in isolation, and we have to go back and review when they're needed. An additional 5th grade and 6th grade materials, because the school has not had 5th and 6th graders before. Additional materials to support would add to the co-curricular area. So those are just some of the things in the library that would need to have some upgrades on. Computer time or computer lab would also be very much a flexible schedule. Again, we would look at computer-aided design, video production, the green sheet behind, which I just learned about, and then you put in the other stuff. You could make videos and that kind of thing. Co-teaching, keyboarding emphasis. We're finding that our students really need that skill of being able to keyboard, not hunt and peck, because their world is going to be with a keyboard in the future. Music. I don't want to elaborate too long on this, but this part really gets me excited as well. The piano lab for kindergarten through 2nd grade. Some of the research that was brought to me by one of our high school teachers, actually, who did her thesis on early childhood education and music, was pointing out to me that there are a lot of reasons why a lab would be great for K-2 students. It has to do with the brain. It's not that we're going to have concert pianists maybe at the end of the K-2 session, but there is something to be said about the brain having to read music, see the patterns, the relationships of music, look ahead to see what's coming next, and putting all of that together in the brain development creates just a higher level of development in a young child's brain. And if you know very much about brain development, you know those first 5 years are crucial. So the younger you are, the more your brain can learn and remember and pick up. When you get old, you start dropping off those brain cells, but we want to build them when they're young. Getting into piano elective, maybe we do want students to have regular piano lessons. Why can't we have piano lessons at school? If we have the facility and we have the equipment, they could. Drama, musicals, band in grade 6, which is current to what we have in our other schools. Music composition. There is software for young children to actually write music and to produce it, and then they can play it. So there are lots of ways to expand that as well. Of course, choir. And then what about a club for a rock band? What kid would not love that? Service learning and business partnerships. This is a component that we feel very strong about. Actually, it was one of the parameters that Dr. Kleinsmith gave us in the very beginning. But we want all kids, all students at this school to be responsible for service learning and community service. We want it to be student interest-based, not something that's not going to make any sense to them, but something that builds on the curriculum. Also, study careers and expose our students to all of the careers that are out there that have a STEM or STEAM emphasis. There are so many. We want the next rocket scientist to come from Southwest Missouri. Use community service activities to showcase STEAM to Nixa. Business partnerships, job shadowing, service learning. We have great opportunities. St. John's, Cox, Branson, architectural firms. I mean, the list just goes on and on of all of the different things that we could actually include. And again, with that added 20 days, it does give us a little bit more time to get into these areas a little bit more in depth. These are just some of the different places around town that, when I say town, I mean surrounding area, that we could be involved with. Just some ideas of places to find job shadowing. I have actually had several different engineering firms, medical people contact me and say, we want to be a part of this. We want to help kids learn about our professions. Okay, that's the end of that one on co-curricular. Any questions about that? Yes.
You were talking about the library and increasing the materials for 5th and 6th grade. This is far-fetched, but since we're going on one-on-one technology, I'm assuming some kind of, from what I've read, Kindle iPad type thing. Is that
Correct.
Okay. So are you going to have a library with books? Or, because,
Yes.
I mean, that to me is why, I mean, you have those things.
Right. And
So-
and I think maybe in 20 years, that may be exactly how schools will look. But right now, I'm not sure that all of the books that we really need are available. There are a lot of things that are, and when it gets to research and that type of thing, like I guess probably we would never buy another set of encyclopedias. I mean, they're online. And so we will be moving toward that. My personal belief with young children, particularly K to 2, there are a lot of developmental skills that they really still need that need to be with the book and with the paper and pencil
Is
too.
there going to be some kind of plan for, like, downloading books, that type of thing, like, on their, whatever
Yes,
they have?
there will be, yes. But we'll make sure that they're the right ones, you know. You know what I mean? Well, I don't mean that. I mean, we want to make sure that it is they're strong in the curriculum that we need.
Is this a pilot program that we will try to implement these things in the other schools as well, so that it's not for every student? This is for Thomas, and that's it. So when you talk about elevating and immersing all of the students into this atmosphere, it won't be, it'll just be for Thomas.
Will this expand? That's yet to be seen, yet to be determined. We're not opposed to it. As I've said in many of the conversations I've had in the past, at the beginning, there was no intent in my mind, at least, to expand it. My mind has been changed, in part because our Board of Education has been wise enough to see over the horizon and see that this could be a possibility. We know that, like Jonesboro, Arkansas, has all their schools with a different flavor, a different magnet. World language for one, STEM for another. So we're open to that, but it's not an immediate planning stage. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is, as far as for family kind of scheduling and this extended school year question, how will the library work? Will it be open to families or will it be individual students?
I think we can answer your question when we get a little further.
Okay.
Okay? Yes.
You bring in dance, drama, yoga. Are you bringing in professionals to teach that, or are you expecting Coach F to teach dance?
I think that'd be a great idea. No, we would either be training or, right. It would be appropriate. I don't know, he might do a great job. We should ask him. Yes.
This is one thing that and I know it's probably more money-wise or something, but you said, with the band program, with the arts. My question is like strings or developing an orchestra program to go along with like the musicals in the future at the high school. I don't know if there's any.
That's a
thought about
long-term dream, and it
Right.
would be wonderful. It's very expensive, and I think that anything in the future is
that. I just
possible.
think we're losing out on some kids who may not want to do
We are losing
band,
out.
but would want to do orchestra.
We are losing out. So we'll use the resources that are available to us over a 1 to 3 year period of time to implement as much as we can for the children we serve. How much is tough to say today. We have the desire for the very reasons that you mentioned, but we only have so much resources. We have to be careful, and so we will unfold this a little bit at a time in the direction that we're sharing with you right now. And so that's our hope. One more question, then we'll move on. Yes, and then we'll come back for some more questions.
Okay, we're with Mark Karen.
There's been a lot of talk and mention of turning our kids into global and reaching more globally, but I'm guessing we're done with curriculum, co-curricular. Any talk of introducing foreign language in a K-6 setting? I don't think they have that yet.
Yeah, that's actually has been in our strategic plan in the past. We have not had the resources, or at least we haven't been able to figure a way out to access resources to carry out that world language at the elementary level. It's very much the desire of our board to do that someday when possible. Right now, for right or wrong reasons, we just haven't gotten to that priority. But it has been said, I think you made mention of, will this expand to other schools? We've had a number of people say, well, if it does, keep in mind world language. Wouldn't it be nice, they would say, that our next magnet school could have the focus, not of STEAM or STEM, but of the world language. So we'll have to stay tuned. So much is dependent upon the resources. And I know you know that, but we just have to keep banging away and thinking creatively and persevere. Let's keep going so there's time for everybody to do this presentation.
Okay, Dr. Chastain, did you have anything to add very quickly?
Just one quick thing. One of the things that our committee on the co-curricular, we talk about the fact that we have students that would attend the magnet school who may have had dance since they were 3 years old. And so we have different areas, and our goal is not to compete in that area. It's not to replace what they're doing, but to offer the beginnings of those different types of formats. So it wouldn't be an advanced yoga class, it wouldn't be an advanced martial arts, but it would be the beginnings of what we see as beneficial to the physical education side. Our goal is not to develop concert pianists as well, because they might have had practice for a long time before they come to us in piano. And so the goal is to, again, support it in a beginning format so that they're exposed to those opportunities, not to replace what students can do outside of the school as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, the next committee worked on guidelines and procedures, and I think this will answer some of your questions, okay? Okay, transfers and enrollment. First of all, this school will have 420 students, which is actually about 70 more students than it currently has, and this would be the first year. The committee actually recommended a calculated lottery. Lots of discussion, but their final recommendation was to select students in an unbiased way, but by family. And what that means is that if you have 2 children, then both of your children would have an opportunity to go to the school. Now, it would be your choice. You might not feel that this would be the best place for all your children. And if you had a child that you didn't think it would be, then they would, of course, have that opportunity to go to their home attendance school. So, is that clear?
Yeah. Is that just first year, or like if you don't have kids in the system yet?
That, Dr. Kopp, do you want to address that? Do you have
That
a
would just be
question?
for the first year, correct.
Okay.
Although, if I can interject, seeing what I'm saying with you, I would say that it could be, that application could be something. I recommend it to the board and they approve it. It might be how we do things every year. If there's openings, we might just apply that same approach. We'll have to wait and see. What we're telling you right now is in the proposal is this concept that I see called calculated lottery by family. I give your committee and team full credit for that because I have never been able to figure out a way to come up with a fair way for when you have one child in your family and 3 in your family. Your 3 could go to the magnet school and your 1 could go to the magnet school. How do we make sure that you don't get 3 times the advantage of getting your kids in versus your 1? Well, here it is, it looks like. You submit by name, and if your name's pulled, your 1 gets in if you want to. If your name's pulled, your 3 get in if you want to, or your 2 or your 1. That, I think, made it, from a calculated standpoint, fair in a way that I've been able to ever figure out on my own, so good job.
Okay, yes.
If our kids aren't already in the school system, and one of our, and the kids that are in the magnet school, what happens to our children if we're in the Thomas district? What school would they be?
Those boundary lines will have to be redrawn. In fact, we're working on those, and so then they would go to whichever school that would be. Did that answer your question? Okay. I went a different direction than I thought it was going. Okay.
How do we define family?
Family would be, I assume, Dr. Koff, and you correct me if your committee went a different way, but who actually lives in your home. If you happen to have a child who you share custody with another, with another family, with a husband or a wife, whatever, that child can only be entered on 1 application for selection. Couldn't be entered on 2.
That's a good question that we'll make note of.
Check, yeah.
And we'll have to get into that because somebody else is going to challenge us on that, because it's easy for me to say parent or guardian, but in this world that we live in, it's much more different and challenging to determine and answer that question. In the next few weeks, let's tackle that definition of what family is. Thank
Yeah,
you.
because
We had some conversations.
Yeah, if you have cousins in California that live with you,
There's foster kids, there's people that have other
Thank you.
families living with them, there's adopted kids.
you could fill up a whole class.
You know, exactly. There's a concept of family.
Yes.
It really has to be.
Well, thank you very much. Is there another question?
Families come in all different.
Yeah, I mean, one more question.
Yes.
So after the first year, your child is in the magnet school, then that child continues through the magnet school. You don't have to do a lottery each year. So if your child
Correct.
starts in 2nd grade, then they can finish through
Yes.
6th grade.
Now, if you would choose that it's not the right place for your child, then they automatically can go back to the school that would be in their attendance area, and then they wouldn't be eligible for a lottery again until the next year.
So there is potential each year for an opening, even not necessarily in kindergarten.
Right. And, I would say realistically, it's not going to be a huge, number of slots, but there will be students move. Students move all the time. And then it may not be the right place, so we wouldn't, go back. Okay, we'll go on, and hopefully there may be some more questions you have that will be answered. Okay, inter-district transfers. This gets into a lot of different nuts and bolts that we do on a daily basis from our perspectives, but you may not be aware. We do have some policies about transfers that are board policies, which we do have to follow. I think I just actually got ahead of myself and said that, but once they transfer out, they would not be eligible until the following year if they would want to come back. Transfers should occur at the end of a grading period, which just makes sense for kids, makes sense for their education and what they're learning. Also, new students to the district would be placed at the bottom of the waiting list, and then in the lottery for the next year, just like the rest of the district. So an example of that would be if we had a new student move into the district, they were interested in the magnet school, but there were other children that were on that waiting list ahead of them, they would go to the bottom. If we worked all our way down, then they would have that opportunity if none of the ones in front of them decided to make that move. Allowable absences, and you're probably very aware that we do have a district policy that expects kids to be at school. And because these kids would be expanding a 20-day period of time, this would allow them to have a couple of extra days, depending on how the calendar looked, where those days would go, of allowable absences. So instead of having 10 a semester, it might be 11 or 12. And we would decide that when the calendar is actually decided. Part-time students, we do have some students who attend our related arts classes, or perhaps they go to a private school in Springfield if they want to access our gifted program, or some of the programs that we have, we do allow that. State law, we do that, but they would not be coming to this school. They would attend one of the schools, in the district. Absenteeism has no impact on enrollment status. This is a school for children of all kinds of needs, whether they're a very high learner, whether they have a certain learning disability, regardless, struggling reader, struggling with math, we will provide those services for these children regardless. And things happen. Absenteeism happens because of hospitalizations, different things like that. So that would not have an impact on whether they can come to the school or not. It is parent choice. Okay. Application versus enrollment requests. And the committee actually had foresight in looking at this, I think, because they said we shouldn't use the word application, and I catch myself doing that. I'm going to have to get in the habit of not doing that. Call it an enrollment request, because they felt that the application implied that the acceptance would depend on the application instead of an unbiased lottery selection system. So I think that's to me, that's a great proposal to call it an enrollment request, because any child has an opportunity to come if they're selected in the unbiased way. Okay, kindergarten enrollment, which is always a big thing around here, especially in my department, and these are some dates that the committee has suggested. I am not sure that those dates will be the final dates that we can actually end up with, because there's a lot of things that have to go into that, and we do have a timeline which we will do in the quickest way that we can, so parents know what to expect next year. That we will work within these guidelines, if accepted, just as much as possible. But that information will be coming out too. We have a day in the K. We have all kinds of little transitional things to get our kids ready for school. So we will want to make sure that we unfold those, the dates as soon as possible and get that underway. Magnet school property, just saying that if there is something that the student has at the magnet school and they transfer out to another school, that property stays there. Whether it's textbooks, library books, electronic devices, whatever. Enrollment of teachers' children. In Nixa, we do have teachers who do live outside the district, and then we have teachers who live in the district, and their children, under one of our current policies, JECB, are allowed to go where their parent teaches or where their parent chooses if they don't actually teach in that building. So far, that has worked great for us. And the committee made the recommendation that certified staff should be allowed to have their children attend this school. The committee expressed some things that made my heart really proud, because they said, if the teachers want their kids to go there, then I know it's good for my kid too. And they also said that teachers, when they have their children there, their life's a lot better too, and it just makes it great for teachers. And I was so proud to know that our parents feel that closeness to our teachers to realize that they're parents too. So anyway, that was their recommendation. Okay, school calendar.
I just wanted to put one thing
Oh,
out.
sure.
The way you said that on the last slide, that because I was on that committee.
Okay.
It's if the teacher teaches at that school.
Yes.
Because right now, a teacher can choose whatever school they want their child to go at.
Thank you.
But we
Yes.
clarified that if the teacher teaches there, yes, their kid should be allowed to go.
Otherwise,
because
they
they're
go in
teaching
the
20
lottery.
extra days, yeah.
Yes.
otherwise.
Yes. Is that clear? I'm sorry. That I did mess that up. You want to stand up and say that again to be clear?
If a teacher teaches at the magnet school, their child would be allowed to attend the magnet school. But if they teach in the district anywhere, they would have to enter the lottery, just like every other parent.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's
You're
okay.
right. Mr. Michael?
In previous presentation, percentages from different buildings was presented as to how many from other buildings could attend. Is that on the table as well?
Do you have that? Is that part of your presentation?
No, it's not.
Then let me cover that now. What we wanted to do is to make sure that no matter where you live in the district, wherever the taxpayer resides, that there's a degree of fairness and equity in getting into the student enrollment, getting a chance to go to the magnet school. So what we've decided, well, let me add this, and then there's also the issue of we have kids at Thomas that have a vested interest because they've been there. So there was a desire to give them a little advantage. So how do you kill two birds with one stone? Well, here's where we're at today. We would like to propose that about 19% of the current population of each of our schools will be able to, you'll have that many slots. So 19% of the current Matthews population, 19% of the Espy population, 19% of the Thomas population, everybody getting an equal opportunity to get into the magnet school. Now what if, here's where the advantage for Thomas comes into play. What happens if Matthews only uses 14% of their 19? There's openings on the table. Espy uses 18%. High Point uses them all. At the end of the period of enrollment, there's going to be some left over. We're going to take all those and give them to Thomas, giving them a little bit of advantage because of the reason I stated before. We feel like they are the school that should have an advantage after everybody's given equal opportunity. So that's where we stand today on that issue.
And that only applies for current.
Yeah.
In the future, that won't apply because there will be no Thomas Elementary District.
We will have to walk our way out of that commitment. You're right. Because there's a point in time to all despair. And we've done our best.
I just see the problem is, oh, well, my fifth grader went to Thomas and I got a kindergartner in 2 years. Are they going to get that same?
Probably not. But we will always seek the fairness issue. Yes.
So it's no longer 45% of the Thomas population?
That's correct.
It's
Where we're at,
now 19?
weeks ago, or a while back, it was discussed to have that higher number. And through discussions and conversations, and to be honest, with some degree of complaining that this isn't fair, I'm a taxpayer, we should all have an equal chance to get into the school. I felt that that's a fair argument, so I got smarter overnight and made some adjustments. But at the same time, I could not shake the Thomas need that exists. I just never could, and I to this day would argue that wherever we have extra enrollment slots available after everybody was treated fairly, we are going to give them to Thomas to give them the upper hand on that advantage. Yes, one more, and then you're going to keep going.
The percentage, you mentioned the elementary, the K to 4 schools, it includes also the 2 fifth and 6th grades.
Yeah, they'll have equal opportunity.
Yes.
We're going to keep moving. I see your hand, so you're going to be the first one we call on after this session. Okay, it's a quick one. Go ahead.
So the 19, so each school has their own family lottery, the 19%?
Yeah, 19% of their current enrollment comes up with a number, and then that's how many we feel.
There will also be a percentage of that will be students with IEPs as well.
Okay.
So with 3 weeks left in my review and reflection, that's where we're at.
Okay. The next thing that I want to show you is a little bit more complicated, and I may turn to Dr. Cox to do some explanation on that too, but it's looking at the school calendar. We've told you that there are 20 extra days added, which would make it a total of 194 days. The committee actually offered 2 options and then recommended one of the 2. The first one I'm going to show you is not the one that they recommended, just so that you see, and I want to make sure it was presented. It's an extended 4th quarter option, and basically it looks a lot like the regular school calendar, but the 4th quarter, where is it? Right here, actually has more days. So the 4th quarter is closer to more like 7 weeks and would end on June 21st, yeah, right here.
In fact, I can interject because I believe this is what's going to get recommended by me to the board, not to get ahead of myself here, but.
Yeah, you haven't even heard yet.
Well, this is the one that I submitted, and I'll tell you why. These calendars right here are exactly the same as what our other districts. If you have a kid going to the magnet school, and you have a kid at Inman, let's say, or junior high and high school, you're all on the same schedule except for June. And even June may be the same if you choose to have your other children go to summer school. So are you thinking, well, Kleinsmith, this is not very progressive. This is nothing more than an extension at the end of the school year. That is correct. Would I like the next option? Yes. So why am I seeming to be a little hypocritical? Well, it's the strategy. I'm just, and this is ahead of me, something. since we're into the calendar, and I know I've had so many people talk about the calendar, allow me to say that I think the best way to get into next school year is with this one, because it's easy to understand, lots of support, nobody argues. This one, many people say, but the other one's so much more exciting. The other one gives so many more opportunities. That's true, but let's wait. Let's get school started with this one, and then let's have the parents of the magnet school with their building improvement teams, with their principal advisory councils, discuss this beautiful next calendar. It is a work of art. Look at it, and then get the families of this magnet school saying, yes, we can make this happen. We will support it. Then, as superintendent, I can say to the Board of Education, they've got significant support at that building level. Let's give them a site-based decision and support them. But not in year one. But again, I could backtrack like we've done on some others. Like I said, a good night's sleep and a meal makes you a lot smarter in the morning. But that's where we're at right now. This is where we're looking at. But let's take a look at that one.
Okay, this one's basically a full school year with summer school kind of days.
Just real quick, then you might want to correct for the next one. On the left side it says they meet orders. On the third, you said.
Oh, and you know what? I saw that and I forgot to go back. It's 48, I believe. It's right. Whoops. No, 43. It's 43. Not just 40. I apologize. Yes.
So, and if I'm looking correctly, in May, when your other students, like your high school students, would get out, then you would have a week of vacation time prior to magnet school. Kids would just come back from vacation and continue their learning.
Same as summer school kids would, provided we don't have 2 weeks of snow. But yeah. Okay, this is the one that they recommended, and this is the one that Dr. Kleinsmith said is a work of art, and it is. It does provide some interesting opportunities with some longer breaks in the fall. Starts earlier, gets out a little earlier in June than what the other one does. And if I understand you correctly, Dr. Kleinsmith, this is something that he'd like to see us kind of work toward, but possibly not be
That's right.
there. But this is what the committee recommended. Okay, I'll let you kind of use that for a second.
How are you treating snow days?
The same as we do all the time. You know, we have that one day that is kind of a given day, that 174th day, and then the additional days are built into the calendar. We have to do that. That's part of the DESE recommendations, or not recommendations, but requirements. Okay, any comments, questions? Yes?
Online where we can look at it?
No,
Not
it's
yet,
not.
but it will be. It will be. That's a good reminder to do so. Yes.
Okay, transportation. The committee did recommend that we not provide transportation. However, they did put this caveat in that due to the logistics of the facility, that busing might actually be necessary. What they're talking about is the land is kind of locked. There's not a lot of room for parent pickup and drop off. And so that could be a possibility. I believe Dr. Kleinsmith, or Dr. Cobb, if I'm correct in what I heard you say too, is that the committee was really kind of up in the air about that. They felt that no transportation would provide some additional funding for some of the resources that are needed, and that was our original thought as well. However, we do want to be sure that we're not limiting students not being able to come because of the transportation
Now's a
issue.
good time to bring this up. There's layers of understanding and layers of acceptance and approval eventually. This is a work in progress. We still have to review this for 3 weeks, consider this. The Board of Education has to approve all components of my recommendation. So what if? Here's an example of what if. I gave you a what if. The calendar was presented. I made a change. I'm going to take the board and get this. There was a change from the proposal. Now the proposal comes to me. I support this proposal, and it goes to the board. The board is likely to say, this part is not something we want to support. We want to offer shuttle service. We want to offer some type of transportation to our students. And so you see, this is a work in progress. It is not a done deal today. We have much more to do in the next month. And so, again, there's different points of checks and balances. And that would be an example, because I say that because the board's been pretty adamant with me about this idea of ours, no transportation. They continue to remind me that we need to continue to look at offering shuttle service.
Can you explain that a little bit? There may be some people in the room that don't realize that some students go to the junior high to get bused to Summit and then on to the high school.
Well, I'll briefly discuss it first, and then we'll move on, but no transportation means the parents provide the means of transporting children to school. Bicycle, walking, many of the things that have been done elsewhere, but if you do transportation, a bus, if you're a mile and a half or farther, we provide transportation. The law only says if it's 3 miles or farther, you have to, but our board's been more generous with that in practice and moved it to a mile and a half. But if we offer no transportation, you'd be on your own. If we offered shuttle services, we would try to have our transportation director identify hubs, pockets where people can get to get a ride. Maybe less of a service, but yet still a service. But we'll have to cover more of that. Thank you. I'll let you move on.
This actually, proposed times 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and if you are familiar with the schedules of Tier 1 and Tier 2, I can see how this could possibly be a real advantage. But the proposed time was to start at 8 o'clock. Our K-4s typically start about 8:40 now, and our junior high and high school start at 7:30, 7:40. So that would actually allow parents time to get across town with some of our traffic and get kids where they need to be dropped off or to pick up at a different time as well. So that was the proposed starting time. XLT, which is our before and after school child care program, would be provided. I was telling you that the school would look like any other school with all of the services. That service would be there as well. These are some of the things that just need to be done to provide the handbook and the board policy support for XLT to look a little different in that it's extended and some of those things. Elevated dress code. This was another proposal that the committee came forth with, and that they recommend an elevated dress code. Not school uniforms, but a dress code, which would mean no t-shirts or jeans. And that was their proposal on that.
Just curious what the thinking is.
Dr. Koff, I'll let you address that, what the thinking was.
Yeah, basically our committee found that that would kind of level the playing field per se. And there are, we had several, and Karen, you're over there too, you can kind of help me out. We looked at different things. We felt like the elevated dress code would be better than a particular school shirt and school pants. But in the end, the committee just kind of felt like that would level the playing field and make something equitable for all. Did I get it well?
How does that level the playing field?
Let's do this. Let's today, for the sake of this, let's seek clarification on what the proposal is. I have to review it, and I will review this one. And in the meantime, if anybody wants to email me or call me or something, point well taken, very well taken.
I think one of the big things is that research has shown, and Dr. Koff, if you can help me out on this, research has also shown by evening out a dress code within a school, it limits the distraction and what other students
Well,
have.
you guys are not talking about a uniform, and there's that research shows uniforms that are provided to all students reduce distraction. But if you're saying that every student has to come in slacks or in a higher level of pants or button-up shirts, that is not the same as developing an actual uniform. Those are two separate entities.
Well,
it's simply having to shop at Dillard's or being able to shop at Walmart.
Send me your thoughts.
Social aspect.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Compact, and a compact is simply an agreement, which is something that a child, teacher, parent understands what the expectations are. And the recommendation is to have a compact for students who would be attending this school. A new part is to also have 20 hours of parental involvement from parents in that school. And go ahead.
A year?
A year. And if you had 2 children attending, then 10 hours for each additional student. So if you had 2 students, it would be 30 hours. Which I've seen a lot of you in schools. That does add up fairly fast. What that looks like would be determined later. I mean, this could be things that are actually done outside the school day as well, because we do know parents work. But just having that involvement, it's just that commitment, if you will, to your child's education. And not that we don't have that from a lot of parents, because we certainly do. Struggling learner, I think I've touched this already. If you have a child and you're considering for them to come to this school, but you're thinking, gee, their reading skills may not be right where they need to be, that is not an issue. Those additional resources will be available in this school as well. That doesn't mean if a child is struggling with reading, for instance, that this might not be a great opportunity for that child as well. Okay, that's the end of that one. I think we have several questions. We're going to go over if we don't go on. So why don't we go on, and then you can always email Dr. Kleinsmith or myself.
We may have time at the end for some.
Right, let's go on through. Okay, technology, and this gets into some of the details, and where's Dave? Oh, I just looked right at you, sorry. I just need to warn you, I did take a few of these out because, it was very detailed, and I want to give you just the main points for the sake of time. Sorry. You're my best friend this morning, you set this all up. Technology, the recommendations were designed to address the technology, the support, and the professional development that would be needed in a school that has the STEM approach, or particularly the T in STEM. Full implementation may take up to 3 years, and that's very important for everyone to understand. The cost and being able to move forward in this manner will take some time. So the school would actually look a little different year 3 than it's going to look year 1. 5 areas, which Dave's committee addressed, which was student technology, teacher technology, technology support and PD, professional development, school-wide technology, and then the infrastructure. And that's where it gets where I don't even know what he's talking about, but he does. Okay, student technology, these are the things that we would need to consider for student technology. Also, I would just like to tell you that the technology would be age appropriate. The recommendations, actually from the committee, are option 2, and it's the K2 students would actually have a 2-to-1 device ratio. Now that means that they could share devices. Each classroom might be designated with like 12, but the other kindergarten class would have 12 also, so they could share those. With lots of research and lots of development of curriculum, young children don't need that computer all of the time anyway, and so in order to use it and be smart in the way that we were introducing it to children, then that to me seems like a very logical way to do that. Grades 3 through 6 would be the 1-to-1 student to device ratio. Okay, does that make sense?
This would be a year 1 implementation. Expect this in year 1.
Yes, this part would take place.
Which means that before school starts, that building would become wireless, which was part of the plan regardless. Even if we don't have it as a magnet school, it will be wireless. So that's just something that happens to coincide with this effort.
Okay.
Are these devices that they would take home like in their backpacks, or they
We'll
would
get to
stay
that.
We'll get to that. Okay. Okay, teacher technology. Of course, the teacher has to have the adequate technology in the classroom as well as the training. And being educators, we realize that without the training, the technology is pretty much worthless. So that professional development definitely would be in place. School-wide technology. This committee actually presented this kind of format for some additional labs, a STEM lab and then a STEAM lab, and then a media production studio that would have 2 stations to facilitate the mission. We also are going to online testing in all of our schools, so they've addressed that as well. Acuity is a monitoring system that we have that your children may have told you that they've taken some tests online, which gives us quick reporting on progress. It's progress monitoring of how students are doing throughout the year based on the Missouri GLEs. The media production studio would be equipped with video editing equipment for the production of multimedia projects, and a possible student news program to be aired on our Channel 3, which if you live within the Nixa city limits, you get that. Okay, the STEAM lab would be we're all familiar with labs, I think, and even a STEM lab could have some science probes and different measurement type things, but the STEAM lab would have some things that maybe we're not always familiar with. So I'll let you look at those quickly. When we talked about the piano before, a piano lab are actually keyboards that are hooked into the computer, webcams, scanners, printers. School-wide technology, these are the things that Dave's committee came up with that we would need. Look at
That's the
those.
special ed, using the Wii.
Right.
You ever seen a kid play on the Wii, he sweats more than he does in a baseball game.
We're also having lots of success with our students in special ed with iPads. It's great to watch. Technology infrastructure, power, network, making it where it'll all work. Whoops. Technology support and professional development. They are recommending that technology support for the school community and individual teacher, technology support for students and parents, professional development for STEM implementation and ongoing. Professional development has to be ongoing. It can't be a one-shot thing. Teachers are just like kids. They need continuous learning. Okay, any questions about that very quickly? We can take maybe one question.
Her question
Did I get
on
my-
whether they were portable or not.
I guess we didn't answer that, did we? I think our intent would be maybe not K2. I mean, that's just kind of me using practical, And that 3 through 6.
You didn't admit it.
I've seen the library books in the backpack with them being.
Right, and we know things like that can happen. That happens to library books. And there would have to be some policies that if it was just total neglect, there might be something that goes with that. But, kids have accidents, they're kids. And so.
Probably third grade on up, we
Probably.
probably would consider to take home. Younger than that, probably not. But, we'll have to hire, select principal, select staff, see where we're at, and make that a team decision.
There is insurance available and that kind of things too for the school. Okay, design team proposal on facilities. This is John Thomas Elementary. If you're not familiar with where the school is, it's nestled in the neighborhood over on Market Street. Marilyn Hanna was our chairman with Susan Hanchey on this particular committee, and they came up with several recommendations over a 3-year period of time as well. Wireless connection, which I think Dr. Kleinsmith mentioned that will be ready to go in just a few months. Parking is probably the one that I heard the loudest in upgrades with electrical. Parking is difficult there, and so there is a plan I'll show you in just a minute. They're recommending the 18 sections of grades K through 6 with suggested labs, and then library updates, including books and resources. The electrical wiring throughout the building needs to be done. I've got some people that can attest to that, I think. Additional tables and chairs to accommodate older students, furniture and equipment for the science lab, furniture and equipment for music and art labs.
Debbie, one thing that has come up in a lot of discussions has always been, well, are you the extra money and all those kind of things? But the thing is, we were already going to upgrade and do stuff to
Yes.
Thomas already.
Yes.
We're just making the decisions as how to focus that money and investment based upon what decision is made. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Yeah, okay.
These are some more year 1, year 2 things, but additional storage, remodel existing risers in the music room to accommodate instruments, and then some big screens and projectors in the gym for performances. The stage makes it a little difficult to see sometimes, which is something that needs to be done regardless. Currently, in library only, but by January 2012, the wireless would be through the entire building. If you go to Thomas right now, the library is wireless as it is in most of our buildings, correct, Dave? Yes, I think.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, it is. Install portable overnight charging stations to meet technology needs. We have that many devices. If your house is like mine, there's something plugged in a lot of places. Solar panel installed throughout the building, which would be a way to go toward the green and saving energy. These are some pictures of the pickup and drop-off at Thomas, which would need to be redesigned to maybe allow for a couple of lanes of traffic. Is that right, ladies? Instead of the way that it is one now, which could be done with some striping on the parking lot. Classrooms and labs. This is their suggestion. The only thing that I would add to this is depending on the application of students and the ages of those students, that might need to change just a little bit. And of course, we'll have to look at the following year to see how the kids progress, you know.
This is year one.
Yes, year one. And you can tell that there will be, you know, facility space for children with any program that we have in our current schools. Science lab. Now the labs in this particular proposal look a tidbit different than the technology proposals. However, they're very much the same, where we're concentrating on STEM and then concentrating on STEAM and making sure that we do have research labs available for writing projects and that type of thing.
Does that say K through 2 in the mobile?
There is a mobile that is behind the building that would make a great science lab, I believe. Is that what your committee thought? Which would not necessarily be the technology science. Who asked me that? Was it you, Lexi? Oh, it was you. Okay.
Science in K2, we recognize, looks a lot more like cooking activities and sensory opportunities and that sort of thing. It's different than, you know, than Bunsen burners and that sort of thing. And so we thought, you know, they need open space to explore and that sort of thing. And so we're trying to look at opportunities to best meet the needs developmentally of those different age groups.
From the building to the mobile?
No, there's not.
But, you know, again, keep in mind, when you transform from traditional to a different situation, and it gets used differently, those are ideas that we'll have to look at. Let's have one quick question, and we do need to move on to the next one. Yes, ma'am?
Real quick clarification. If we having computers, abundance of technology in each classroom, why do we need a computer lab?
Well, the labs would
David, why don't
present.
you came from a
I can
workshop.
answer that, because these devices will not do the types of things that they'll be wanting to do in the lab. They're not a substitute for one another.
So apparently there's more. Good question. Go ahead, David, or Debbie.
Okay. Additional parking spaces. There would be more students at this school, so there would be additional space. The committee put together a very viable plan that looks like it could be a good solution for some additional parking. Actually would equal about 48 spaces. It takes part of the playground, but this part of the playground is not used because it's not visible from a vantage point to by the people supervising. It's actually behind that mobile unit, so it could be used for parking. These are some more of the updates for the library. A lot of these are very practical, you know, things that would need to be done if you increase the materials there. They've been very complete in looking at the recommendations. One thing that I think we always need to remember is that we will have older students, 5th and 6th graders, so those materials need to expand, you know, on up into upper grades, you know, junior high, even some high school level things for those students who would have that ability level. E-books, I think somebody asked me about books, e-books. We're really getting into looking at that a lot and seeing the cost comparison to buying a traditional book anyway. Okay, sidewalks, awning. Currently 3rd and 4th grade wing to the mobile unit, update windows. These are all things that do need to be added to Thomas, regardless of whether it was a magnet school or not, but they're things we don't want to forget we need to be working toward. Remodeling the stage area would actually allow a better vantage point for viewing programs and that kind of thing. Additional security cameras are needed, and upgrade the playground so that it's more you know, acceptable for older kids. Okay, and then also a name change on the marquee and a new name on the front of the building. We would not change the John C. Thomas, but there is, I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, that was facilities. There's a lot of detail in that. Many of those things are on our radar to be done in the future anyway, but there are some things that would actually be a little different.
Go to the publicity, and then we'll have all questions at the end.
Okay. Okay, after the committee made suggestions for the name, all the names were voted on and scored to select a name for the magnet school. So it will be John C. Thomas. Are you ready? School of Discovery. And I think that was pretty unanimous by the committee, and
So it's John Thomas School of Discovery.
is their proposal. Okay, the publicity committee is also working on some other things. Just to be ready, if this is accepted by our Board of Education, and these are some of the things that you can expect to see in the future. Okay.
You did a great job.